Hello and welcome to the Blockchain Startup Show. I'm Anomit Ghosh. Well, today we have a company which is solving problems, but problems that are unique. Introducing to you all PowerLoom Protocol, a company that's bringing the power of decentralization to challenges that are unique to applications based on smart contracts running on programmable blockchains. Well, if that sounds too complicated, why not hear it from the horse's mouth itself? On that note, let's bring on board Anomit Ghosh. He's the co-founder and CTO of PowerLoom Protocol. Anomit, good to have you on board. Thanks so much and welcome to the Blockchain Startup Show. So I want to start off by asking you, you've been an MMA trainer back in your career. Can you actually define for us the journey from being an MMA trainer to now Web3?
Yeah, all right. This happened like in the beginning of 2018, end of 2017. The last thing I was doing was I was at Cult Fitness. I'm sure you know about them. So we were like having these MMA classes, and there were professionals as well as beginners. But then I had a few injuries that were not really letting me train properly as well. So I had just gotten back in touch with my co-founder back from my college days, the last couple of years of college. And he mentioned this blockchain thing and how you could program applications to run in like a decentralized way. So that was like, that kind of piqued my interest, obviously. And I also needed to take some rest and let my body heal. So I thought, why not just take a look at it and take a stab at it? And one thing led to another. We kind of launched this developer tooling company on Ethereum and other Ethereum-like blockchains. So yeah, that was like my journey, how it started in Web3.
Right. And, as we all know, Web3 is at a very nascent stage and a lot of infrastructure needs to be built. People are talking a lot about Web3 these days, but what do you think is the internet of the future? Or do you think it's just a buzzword?
Yeah, I do have like a little bit of research background also in that, because I was trying to study these distributed decentralized computing back in college as well. So I do believe it is the future, because there are some things that we have taken for granted, right, in the world of Web 2, like the data that we are served, it actually comes from behind a closed wall. And what we are shown is what the operator or the provider wants us to see. What is available with Web3 instead is like a built-in layer of like trust, where there are millions of computers who have already done the hard bit of verifying the data that is being served to you, or verifying what is the condition of your application, et cetera, et cetera. So that is a game changer in my opinion. Yeah.
Now, coming to PowerLoom, how would you really explain to your company, someone who has no idea about Web3? Because when I read out the introduction, there was a whole bunch of words that I don't think a lot of people understood. So what's your definition?
Okay, so PowerLoom, in its nutshell, it offers like verified data analytics insights on top of applications that are running in the blockchain. When I say verified and validated, what it means is actually there are let's say 20 different computers that the protocol engages in taking snapshots of data, extracting useful information, what you would like. What you do see as the final insight, the final analytics, you can be sure that a multiple number of peers, computers in the network have actually verified and attested that this is good to go. So you do not get data that is maybe wrong, or that has not been calculated properly.
Well, that really puts things into perspective. Now, when you say we're scaling trust in DeFi, what is the current state of DeFi and how exactly does PowerLoom fit in?
There were quite a bit of funds that were lost. There are two ways funds usually get lost, because of either a bad smart contract design. So that's like a software engineering problem. But the second one is like the business logic itself is flawed, which has loopholes that someone could exploit. But yeah, what could have been done is that if we had like a properly defined framework of saying that, hey, this is the last condition where the market was stable and this was the state of that market at that point of time. If we could just roll it back to that state, and if that was guaranteed by different computers who have done the work of guaranteeing that the state is all right, then the loss of funds could have been completely reverted, because that is the power of having a blockchain. Like, you can change the state as long as it is guaranteed and validated by multiple peers. Then PowerLoom, at its very base layer, even before, like I mentioned, before it offers the insights, the analytics, we do that bit of making sure that every computation happens on the data set that is agreed upon. So even though we say trustless, the actual trust is already being taken care of.
So if you were to draw a comparison, Anomit, which layer does PowerLoom really fit in?
Yeah. So if I have to compare to a traditional finance setup, what we become is like a data insight provider. Now, the issue is like there are very few comparable things in traditional finance, because the data sets themselves are like, behind what I would say, what is usually known as closed walls. Like, it's a walled garden. So you do not really have access to the data except for the APIs that these providers themselves open up. We actually fit in as an auditing solution. Like, believe it or not, we take snapshots of data. We always have something called succinct proof generated from these snapshots of data, which exactly define that the data sets, when they were recorded. And then if you want to, for example, prove that a certain transaction happened at this point of time or not, and was it included in your bank's account statement, in a traditional finance setup, we fit in like right over there.
And who are the key stakeholders in the PowerLoom protocol? How do they stand to benefit?
I will just bring out like the four broad categories, of 3 or 4 broad categories of people who can participate in the PowerLoom protocol. So one thing to begin off with is that the concept of participation, contribution, and different roles and entities in a system, it has never been so far the case with typical internet applications. Like, you either have a server, the producer, and then you have the consumer, like your app, what you read. But here we have like 4 different categories. The first one would be called a snapshotter. The second one would be called an indexer, then an aggregator, and then finally you come in as the consumer, right? So I'll just try to introduce like what would a snapshotter do. Like, the name is kind of descriptive. Snapshot of data in specific intervals on the blockchain. You just have to let the application know which smart contracts are you tracking, what forms the connection between your smart contracts. So that's like a data market configuration where you request for certain data snapshots to be taken, and these snapshotters, they come in and they fulfill that request. So they form the foundational layer, which I just mentioned previously. And then comes in the part of actually the part about indexing. The indexing, what do we mean by indexing is when Google shows you certain page results, that's called indexing, right? Like, it maintains how your book has a index at the back, like, so that you can easily refer to certain information that you quickly want from the book. Same happens with these data markets, and then you can get very specific with it. Like, you can tell that in the last 2 hours, what trades happened on this specific market. Indexes just maintain like a quickly referenceable information, and then aggregators are the ones which actually produce different data composites, filters. So in a blockchain, like, you can get information if a stock market existed on blockchain, that what trades happened on this specific share, who bought, who sold, how did the price movement happen, etc., right? And then you come in as a consumer. Now consumers, because of being a decentralized protocol and having all these different flexible data sets, we have support for both institutional, like large consumers, and as well as independent developers. So large consumers, they have requirements for large data sets like that can extend up to 2 years or even sometimes 5 years. And then you have independent developers who just maybe started developing a new DeFi application tracker, and they have maybe requirement for just a couple of hours worth of data, and they really do not even have the funds to spare that much. So we do target both these categories of consumers, while at the same time we also support a lot of public goods data, where we snapshot public goods data on decentralized exchanges, which are free from any intermediary, no brokerage, no involvement of middlemen. We make sure that they have access to these data sets without even having to pay for it.
Welcome back to the Blockchain Startup Show. We continue our conversation with the co-founder and CTO PowerLoom Protocol, Anomit Ghosh. So what other infrastructure use cases are you excited about in the future?
Some of the infrastructure use cases that have really developed at a rapid pace in the last 1 year or 1.5 years, I would say, are things in the area of zero knowledge proofs. So this is a very technical sounding term, but at its background, what lies is just like good math. Like I mentioned, one of the things, like how do you prove that a certain transaction happened between two parties at any given point of time in the past, and was it included in the bank's ledger or database, right? Traditional way would be you do like a database query, which goes through literally trillions of records that would have accumulated in the last 2 years, and proving it is actually not easy. But that's what zero knowledge proofs allow you to do. And there have been so much good developments that have happened in this space in the last 1.5 years. The names might throw people off a bit, but at the core of it, what is really happening is now you're getting the ability to constantly keep building trustless systems where you can literally blindly trust, because these proofs, these validations, these verifications of the integrity of data is already being done behind the scenes mathematically, without having to involve centralized, powerful conglomerates, which I will not name, but you know how they have been controlling the financial world and how they keep getting bailed out.
Now, given that you're working towards data integrity, why does a decentralized solution work better than a centralized one, just so that we understand?
Yeah. So when we say decentralized, one of the things that people have a really hard time wrapping their head around is that, what is this decentralization? Decentralization is the very basic fact that the data does not reside in one place and then someone tells you that this is the data. It's reached on consensus, right? Hence, it is called blockchain, because it literally moves blocks at a time, and blocks contain like very, very little bits of information, but that's what allows the sequence to be exactly verifiable, right? Like if I have been transferring to you over a period of a year, our account balances are basically a summation and negation of all these activities that have happened over the last 1 year. So the very act of viewing data, the scope of viewing data also needs to be decentralized. Hence, for data integrity, like a decentralized solution is a must.
Let's also talk about a real world scenario for a minute. What, according to you, will be the most pertinent use cases for PowerLoom?
I'll just go back like a couple of years back, before PowerLoom was formed. we were building on this idea in a lot of global blockchain hackathons, and we had named it Audit Protocol. We were trying to build a solution that would prove in real time that a certain set of signatures were added to a document in a certain specific sequence. And when we tried to do that, we realized that there is no proper framework which really audits like useful information in terms of what you need. So that is where I would say that PowerLoom's audit protocol is almost like ready-made for such use cases, and it can be a huge deterrent to financial frauds, bad loan actors, who approved a loan given to someone who is already defaulting on like literally thousands of crores worth of NPA. That would become a quick red flag if PowerLoom was ever implemented in such systems.
And how has Filecoin really helped you in this PowerLoom journey?
I cannot possibly say enough about like the support we've received from Filecoin, the project, the programmatic project itself, as well as the Filecoin Foundation. Technology that we are using for decentralized storage, and then having different machines reach verification and consensus on these data sets, it is entirely made possible thanks to Filecoin and other related technologies that run on the Filecoin stack. We came up with the idea of linking different data sources thanks to Filecoin's design, protocol design itself. So we can like totally trust the Filecoin network to literally handle terabytes worth of data sets. We can push it and we can be sure that it never gets lost. Like this is a huge thing for a data provider to say that you will never lose data. That's because the foundational protocol itself in Filecoin takes care of that part of making sure our data that we store is not lost, right? Our data sets, our computation, our insights, our analytics, they do not get lost. The level of involvement of engineers, open source developers that I've seen from across the world is like phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, without their support, a lot of things would not have been possible in the decentralized world at the moment.
And what are you most looking forward to in the Web3 space in the coming years? What does the future hold?
So yeah, coming to the very first thing that maybe I'm looking forward to in the Web3 ecosystem is like the move. We should move our, public goods data. When I say public goods data, like there is a lot of data that should be out in the public as open, verifiable, auditable data sets, but they are not. You have municipal corporations spending on road infrastructure. What did they spend on improving the water pipelining in your area? Where is the actual data set? It is there in reports, but who is preparing the reports? Where is the actual data behind it? And in 2023, we have the capability to serve large data sets across the network. So the very first thing I am looking forward to personally is the movement of public goods data onto the Web3 ecosystem. Filecoin Foundation is actually doing, continuing from the last thing, Filecoin Foundation is actually doing quite a bit of work on bringing open data sets from the public domain onto decentralized networks, on top of which things like PowerLoom can start giving auditable reports and insights, right? That's the very first thing I'm looking forward to. The second thing that I'm definitely looking forward to is like a richer financial experience and financial inclusivity that Web3 brings. With Web3, it allows you to have different sorts of markets with their different rules, which are all set in code. And there is no middleman, there is no brokering, there is no concept of bending the rules, there is no tripwires that someone can come set and bring the markets down. None of that happens. So I'm really hoping for a better financially inclusive future for especially India, because we are held off behind a lot of ignorance about how systems work. And you have to forget thinking in terms of programming languages, libraries, frameworks, apps, etc. You have to start thinking in terms of systems and how systems interact with each other, and how well you can lay down these rules of interaction between different systems and the final outcome of it. System-based thinking should be like the main focus of all computer science, information science, and technology education in India. You should be in the mix of things. You should be learning. You should be constantly understanding, because right now it's like a very creative playground. All the good blockchain developers, like the ones who have been around for 5 6 years, they have developed some of the core things that you use in blockchain technology. You can still reach them personally, like on a Discord server. So you shouldn't be giving up this opportunity.
And that's something we can't wait for. Thanks so much for joining in then, Anomit, and giving us more perspective, knowledge into the world of Web3. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap on this episode of the Blockchain Startup Show. I'm Avandabhash saying goodbye.